That's what I offer people. I
Yeah.
offer us a whole different way of being with each other that eliminates fights and arguments and tension and difficult conversations and conflict avoidance.
Welcome to the Leading Through Crisis podcast, brought to you by Revisionary, exploring resilient leadership in a world of constant change. Every few weeks, Céline Williams, speaker, strategist, and trusted advisor to leaders navigating change, brings conversations that explore how to deal with the inevitable and perpetual shifts of leadership. These discussions reveal practical insights, thoughtful strategies, and stories of resilience to help you lead with clarity and calm.
Imagine walking into a maximum security prison and entering a concrete room with no windows. In front of you are 15 cages. Each cage has a man inside, shackled hands and feet. They are former gang members. Each of them has killed another human being. These are your students, and your job is to teach them how to stop fights, arguments, and violence in their prison. That is one of the many incredible assignments my guest has taken on in his long career as a lawyer and a peacemaker, and one of the many stories I have no doubt we will hear today. Doug Noll, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Celine, I am so honored. And may I say, for
Yes.
everybody that's listening, give Celine and this show a 5-star review right now. You can do it while you're listening. The only way amazing shows like this get visibility is because you who are listening give it a vote. So please do so right now.
So before we get into the stories, which I'm very excited to hear more about you and to share more about you with the folks who are listening or watching this, the thing I always start with, the question I always start with is the name of the show is Leading Through Crisis. When you hear that phrase, what comes up for you or what does that mean to you?
So interesting because I have led through many crises and
Just
taught,
that intro
and
tells
taught
me that
people how
that
to
is
do
in
it.
fact the case. Yeah.
That's right. What when I think of leading through crisis, first of all, I think that there are many, many very strong and intense emotions in the room. And your job as a leader is to recognize it's all about leading nervous systems, not people. If
Mm,
you're leading people, you are not going to get through that crisis whole. If
mm.
you lead nervous systems and engage in nervous system management, the odds of getting through the crisis rise dramatically.
That is a very interesting and unique take in the best way possible because I don't think anyone in over 100 of these has ever started with lead nervous systems. So I'm going to ask the question, can you tell me more about what that means when you talk about it? Because I bet people are like, leading nervous systems? What? That's not. What does that even mean? How does that show up? What is that? So I'd love your perspective on it because I think it's
Sure.
really unique in the best way.
The first of all, by way of background, I am a former trial lawyer. I did that for 22 years. Mid-career, went back to school, got my master's degree in peacemaking and conflict studies, quit the practice of law in 2000 to become a peacemaker. Professionally, among many other things that I do, I get called into really intense conflicts, oftentimes at crisis level. The
Mm,
one thing that all conflicts, fights, arguments, and crises have in common is that they're dominated by emotions.
hmm
So here's the thing to understand. Our human brains are constantly asking 3 questions. Am I safe? Can I trust you? Do I matter? When we get into a crisis, the threat response goes off from the amygdala into the hypothalamus. And the first thing that happens is the prefrontal cortex completely shuts down. When cortisol is released into the bloodstream, our immune system is shut off, our digestive system is shut off, our prefrontal cortex is shut off, blood flow increases to the periphery to run or to fight, and all we focus on, we get tunnel vision, and all we focus on is the threat. We're going to either run from it or we're going to fight it. Now think about that. Our brains can't distinguish between a saber-toothed tiger and a crisis of some kind or a conflict or
Yeah.
a fight or argument. It
Right.
cannot distinguish between those two, so and its reaction, the threat reaction, is exactly the same. How well do you think a person in that state is going to respond to leading through logic, or leading through persuasion, or leading through, I don't know, strategic thinking? Not going to happen. Period.
Yeah.
So when I talk about nervous system leadership, what I'm trying to do is to get leaders to understand that they influence what's going on in the nervous systems around them. And that if they're not paying attention to the nervous systems and how those nervous systems are reacting, they are not going to be effective. It's much more important to pay attention to nervous systems than it is to anything else. We were talking before the show, and I said that, most leaders only lead 5% of the brain. The part of the brain they
Yes.
think is the critical thinking, deliberative thinking part of the brain. I don't even use the word rationality because there is no such thing as rationality. But here's the problem. 95% of our brain, the emotional side of our brain, the threat status side of our brain, has the veto power over the 5%, and it will veto that 5% right away with the slightest provocation.
Yeah.
We should be leading the 95%, not the 5%, and we do that through nervous system leadership.
I'm curious because I think that's incredibly insightful. And before we hit record, we were in agreement that this idea of rationality and people being like, "Oh, I'm so logical and rational," is bull crap
It
because we're
is.
all emotional. And yet we continue to see leaders who are, whether it's that they don't know how or they're uncomfortable leading anything but what they perceive or have decided is rational. So it doesn't happen. And I'm curious from your perspective and your experience, if someone's response is like, where would I even start? Like, what does that mean? Because they have this idea that you can't lead emotions, and emotions, there's no
Yep.
crying in baseball, and emotions are whatever,
Right.
that they don't even know where to start. What would you say to someone who hears that and is like, I don't know what that is?
The first thing I'm going to do is ask a simple question.
Mm.
So, Celine, remember when you were a little girl, maybe 2 or 3 years old, and you were running around, and you fell down and you skinned your knee and started to cry? What were you told?
Ooh,
Do you remember?
that everything would be okay,
There you
probably,
go.
that
Perfect.
everything's
Everything's going to
gonna be
be
okay.
okay. Don't
Yep,
cry. Be a good big girl. Put on your
yep,
big girl panties. Guy, it's even worse for guys.
yeah, oh yeah, yep,
Here's the thing. The reason that leaders today can't relate to emotions is because they were taught from the time they were born that emotions are bad. Emotions make you weak. Emotions are
hmm,
evil. They make you vulnerable. You can be exploited if you're emotional. Don't be emotional. You were denied the right and the ability to emotionally mature in the way that the brain is designed to mature. And your emotional maturity stopped at between 6 and 8 years old when you were emotionally invalidated, because you learned very quickly that the world is an unsafe place to
yeah,
be emotionally. So you build walls around yourself, and you only let a certain part of you become emotionally available. Well, if that's your upbringing, which it is for just about everybody, of course you're going to say that emotions are bad, emotions are weak, because that's what you were taught and trained.
yeah,
It turns out that all of that is false. And the
hmm,
reason that we have a drug addiction and that we have the kinds of problems we have today with polarization, and the reason that we have alienation, and the reason that we have people in prison, is because of emotional invalidation more than anything else. It's the most
mm,
it's the most insidious and pervasive form of abuse there is, and we all suffer from it. So the secret is to understand that we really are emotional beings, and emotions don't make us weak, they make us strong.
hmm,
Now, all we have to do is learn a couple of really simple skills that changes the equation completely. It's not hard to do. It doesn't take long to master. It's just really more mindset and practice more than anything else.
Are you willing to share what those skills are with us?
2 words: you feel.
Mm.
So let me give you an example. So I want you to think of a situation you had in the last couple of weeks that had some emotionality to it. Maybe some upset, frustration, something like that. Tell me the story.
Well, this is going to be a little bit heavy, but
Doesn't matter.
a very close family friend who I've known since I was born died a week ago.
Wow. So there was this sudden death of a very close family friend, and you were
Hmm.
shocked. You were
Yes.
sad.
Saddened. There,
Sad, intense grief, loss,
yes. Yep.
connection, even a little anger. How could they dare abandon me like that?
Well, and some guilt where it's
And
like, ooh,
abs-
I could have been there more.
guilt that you were not
Hmm.
there, and feeling like out of control. There's nothing I could have done about this. Maybe there's something I should have done about this. So some shame
Absolutely.
and a deep loss of connection,
Hmm.
which was really hurtful and upsetting, distressing and depressing.
Hmm.
Anything else?
Yeah, there was some relief that they're not suffering anymore. There were also some
Positive
uh,
emotions. So
positive
you
emotions.
were relieved that the suffering was over
Yes.
and happy that you knew this person and had a life with them
And I have
and
all the memories of that
you have all
person.
the memories to and you think about their life and how they led it, and as you think about that and think about your relationship, you feel warmth inside yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's an opportunity to feel that as part of the loss as well, is that
That's right.
to feel the warmth and not just coexist with it
Or throw it away
or
because you don't
throw it
want to
away.
feel anything. Anything else?
No, I think that covers most of it, at least what comes to mind.
How did you experience that?
Physically, like in my body, is that what
Both
you mean? Or just
physically and emotionally.
for lack of a better way of saying it, in my body, there was both like quite literally like a heart warming, chest warming, like where you kind of feel like you can't really see my hands, but where you're kind of doing this like that internal, there's a moment of that. And also that like weight coming off, so it feel from the relief, right? Like
A
there's
lightness.
that. There's a lightness. And there's also a heaviness. It's like a cloud of sadness because there's grief and loss and disconnection. And so it's almost like it's going to be a strange visual, but bear with me because you asked. So it's almost like a cloud here and like a darkness because of the
So you became aware of a cloud and darkness of the sadness and grief and upset and depression of the loss, but you're
yes.
aware of it and you could literally feel it, experience
Yes.
it
Yeah.
as something that is tangible
Yeah.
that maybe you weren't experiencing as much before.
Yes.
And did you notice a softness, how your body softened and relaxed?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So what I just did to get back to the question, notice that and for everybody that's listening and watching, notice that I didn't try to problem solve. I didn't try to fix. I didn't try to say, oh, you poor thing. All I did was say, you feel. And I named the emotions that are typically associated with grief and loss.
Hmm.
And notice how you reacted. You said, yes, that's right. Oh, yeah. And I felt guilt. And I felt this. By me naming your emotions, I quieted the centers of your brain associated with negative emotion, activated your right ventrolateral prefrontal cortex, which allow you to access more of what you were feeling. And that's where the statement around guilt came from, because you
Hmm.
may not have been aware of that so completely as you were, which then allows you to experience even more emotion. And I keep labeling and labeling and labeling until we're done. That whole process took 2 minutes.
Yep.
That's how you do it. You feel. And all you just keep saying, you feel, you'll get a reaction, you'll feel, tell me more, you feel, until the person says, yeah, that's exactly how, this is what you did, exactly how I feel. Your shoulders dropped, you sighed a relief, and you nodded your head. Now it's
Yep.
complete. We're done. And all I have to do is say anything else to make sure that it's complete. The
Yeah.
process takes between 90 and 120 seconds. It works on every single human brain. We're hardwired for this. Even people with Alzheimer's, people who have nothing left except emotion, respond to this.
Hmm.
And
Interesting.
and it is the fastest, most effective way of listening to calm a nervous system.
Hmm.
Nothing else is like it. There's nothing else out there, and I believe me, I have studied it all. There is nothing else out there that works like this does.
Yeah. Why don't more people know about this, Doug?
It's new knowledge.
Okay. Oh, good.
Okay. It's
Okay.
only 20 years old. The seminal study came out in 2007. There are not a lot of people that are like me who are scholar practitioners. I mean, I practice and I want to get better. I've studied neuroscience for over 30 years now. And I'm one of those geeky guys that goes out and says, what is really going on here? And
Yeah.
I'll go out and do the research. What does science say about what I'm observing? And then I'll
Mm.
take that science and try to figure out, okay, this is describing what's going on. How does this relate to my work as a peacemaker and a mediator, helping people resolve conflict, or as a decision maker, helping people make better decisions? And so I'm able to synthesize this information. Not many other people do that kind of work.
Mm.
And right now, I'm one of the few voices out there that are really starting to talk about this in a really practical, grounded, skill-based way. And so that's why you haven't heard about it. That's why I'm on this show, is because
Yeah.
of spreading the word, getting
Yeah.
people that should no longer be the case. Everybody needs to know this. Parents, teachers, everybody.
Yes, they really
Leaders,
do.
leaders especially. And the reason I'm focusing on leaders, because leaders have the most influence.
100%.
If you have a leader who's got a team of even 5 people, if I can teach this leader how to say you feel and engage in leadership empathy, which is what this is, those 5 people are mimetic. They're going to start modeling the behavior that's given to them. And they're going to take it home and start labeling and naming the emotions that their kids are having or that their partner is having. And they're going to start, and it's going to spread.
Yeah.
So where's the biggest leverage point? It's with people who are already have influence, who are willing to change and transform their lives and the lives of people around them.
Absolutely. So it's really interesting because I have, much to the chagrin of anyone who has known me for any length of time, I have been a very annoying broken record about two things. One of them is that all feelings are good because they give us information. So we have to stop labeling a feeling as bad. They're all good. They're all information. We need to feel them all for a reason. What we do with them, we might not be the most effective way of expressing or whatever, but the feeling itself is neutral and information. We have
Emotions are data, just like
Yes,
numbers on a spreadsheet.
exactly. And then the other thing, and it's really interesting because the exercise that you shared, how this you feel, which I think is incredible. And I hope everyone, first of all, I'm going to start practicing it, but I also hope that everyone who's listening really hears and understands how impactful that is. Because one of the things that I have done with leaders I work with for a long time is to have them acknowledge their own feelings as
Absolutely.
part of a situation, right?
I
So
feel.
when it's like, I'm going to use COVID, not that it's my favorite example, but it's just an easy one that everyone has some memory of, right? So
Mhm.
COVID hits and people are panicking, like, I don't know what to do, and blah, blah. And I kept saying to leaders, if you say, like, hey, I feel really scared or I feel uncertain about what's happening, and I know there's so many, and you start to acknowledge your experience and how you feel, people calm they even if it's not the exact feeling, they're more likely to add on or calm down or feel part of something rather than nobody understands me, which is what was happening.
Right. By saying I feel, you are having exactly the same effect on your brain
Right.
that you have when you say you feel to somebody else. You're inhibiting the centers of the brain associated with negative emotion, and you're reactivating the right ventral lateral prefrontal cortex. And you can literally calm yourself down in 90 seconds from any
Yes.
state of arousal.
Yep.
And so saying I feel is a really important skill. I typically teach people how to do third party or dyadic affect labeling, you feel, first, because it's easier, interestingly enough. And then once they get into that, then we can start talking about, okay, now let's start working with I feel. And then the question becomes, do I do this out loud or do I do this internally? And of course it's always contextual. So we learn.
Yes.
When is it
Yeah.
appropriate to do it out loud? When is it appropriate to keep it inside?
Well, I love this because obviously many leaders were resistant to my ideas, because it was, I feel, and also sharing it with people. And the funny thing is, the ones that did it, it did change the conversation significantly.
It does.
But this is like the perfect way of doing it where it doesn't feel as unsafe to people. In
That's
my
right.
opinion, I hear this and I'm like, I can see how leaders would be like, this feels much safer.
The key here is emotional contagion. So let's take an example of where the leader is in a meeting, and first of all, in a meeting, the first thing I would do is I would take the temperature of the rooms, and I would affect label the whole team. So you guys are really frustrated, you're really angry, you feel really, really invisible and unheard, and you haven't been listened to, and you're pissed off because you're being blamed for results that you didn't have any authority to change, and it's extraordinarily frustrating to you.
Yep.
Then, depending on the circumstances, said, well, let me tell you, I feel embarrassed and shamed that I didn't assert myself to the executive stronger to try to protect you.
Mm.
And it was a lesson for me in moral accountability. And I'm really mad at myself because I didn't do that.
Mm.
I'm not going to apologize. I'm just going to take it. Now, what happens is when I say that, I start to calm down, and everybody else in the room starts to calm down because I've labeled them, and now I'm labeling myself. I'm calming down, and they feel it, and they calm down.
Yeah. It enables connection as part of that.
It is really the only way to connect.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a story about when I first, this really hit me. It hit home.
I love stories. I was going to
I want to give one to you.
Anyways,
This is a story that I tell a lot, but it's the first story that came out of prison. For 10 years, I worked in maximum security prisons, co-founder of the Prison of Peace Project, training life and long-term inmates how to stop prison violence, as you said in the introduction. The very first prison we went into was the largest, most violent women's prison in the world. And we were standing in front of 15 women, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, 30 years old to 65 years old, angry, skeptical, disbelieving,
I bet,
and super not happy to see a white male man who was a lawyer.
Yeah, you went in with everything that was
I had everything stacked against me. That's okay. They were curious, and that's all I cared about. So for the next 5 weeks, Laurel and I started teaching these women the basic skills that would eventually lead to them becoming mediators and peacemakers. And for 5 weeks, I didn't think we were making progress. But I will say that the very first skill we teach, even today, is how to listen to emotions. The technical term is called affect labeling. We teach them how to listen to and name emotions. You feel. That's the foundational skill of peacemaking, and that's what we teach them. So we're 5 weeks into the program, not sure we're getting anywhere. And we walk in on that Wednesday morning in this dingy, dirty, filthy conference room deep in the bowels of this prison with all this violence. And one of our students, Sarah, is sitting over in the corner, and she's crying, sobbing. This is unusual behavior. So we walk over, Laurel kneels down next to her and says, Sarah, what's going on? And she tells us this story. I've been in prison for 18 years. I'm serving a 25 to life for a fatal DUI. I killed a family of 4 as a drunk driver. When I had to come to prison, I gave up my 3-year-old son to my sister to raise. And I've written him a letter every single week for 18 years. He's never called me. He's never visited. He's never written back. Last week, I decided to write a different kind of letter to him. And I thought about what it must be like to have an imprisoned killer as a mother. Angry, enraged, sad, grief-stricken, confused, unloved, unlovable. So I wrote him a letter, and I named off all of what I thought his feelings were. Today, for the first time in 18 years, I got a letter back from him. And at the bottom of the letter, he said, I love you, Mom. I'm bringing my girlfriend, and we're going to come visit you in 3 weeks. And she was holding the letter in her hand, a crumpled piece of paper. You could see where the tears had stained the ink. Yeah. Her thumb was over the word love. Like she couldn't believe it was real. And that's when it hit me. We weren't teaching these women how to be peacemakers. We weren't just teaching them how to name emotions to calm people down. We were helping them restore their own humanity themselves so they could connect to other members of their family.
Yeah.
And it was the first story and the most powerful story of 10 years of working in prisons.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, what an incredible experience to have had, and moment to know that this is making a difference. Like, this is making a difference, especially when you're at 5 weeks and you're thinking, I don't know if this is working, which I imagine there was some of that happening to what you said earlier.
Absolutely.
If ever there was doubt, no longer.
And you know, Celine, we've heard the same stories over and over and over again. In every different kind, we worked mostly in California and Connecticut prisons, and it's the same everywhere. The stories of disconnection and reconnection once they learned how to say you feel. And if this can work in a prison, it's going to work in your family. It's going to
Yeah.
work in your boardroom. It's going to work in your crisis moment. There is nothing darker than a maximum security prison.
Yeah. And to one of the things that you said earlier about how you used a better word than what I'm about to use, but how problematic and insidious
Pervasive and insidious is the
thank
words I
you.
use. Pervasive and
Uh,
insidious abuse.
yes, to that point, you're going to see, for obvious, where there's no place it's more evident than a prison system,
That's right.
right? Where you
They
really
are the
see
most
the
abused people.
That's right. You really see the extremes of all of it, unfortunately. And for it to have this kind of positive effect that you're obviously still doing it, it's making a difference.
That's right.
That speaks volumes. That is the place. If it's going to have an impact there, there is no boardroom on this earth that it's not going to have an impact in.
And it took me a while to figure that out. I said, why am I just teaching this in prison? This should be taught everywhere. As I began to see the transformations, that's what led to my fourth book, De-Escalate. And, you know, I began to think about, how do I get this outside these prison walls into the
Mm,
real world? How do I
yeah.
teach people that they don't have to have fights and arguments, that you never have to have a fight or argument again with these simple skills? Counterintuitive, counternormative, but simple. And so that's what
Yeah.
my life's mission has been since that time.
I might start gifting your book to all of the conflict avoidant people that I know because, like, I'm not even kidding, but so much of that I see in leaders and work that I do, but also just people, humans operating on this planet, the level of conflict avoidance because they
Super high.
don't want to deal with an argument, that it's so extreme.
Well, think about it. Of course it is. Everybody's afraid of it.
Sure.
But if you've been told that emotions are bad and you've never had an
Right.
emotional coach and nobody's ever told you how to manage emotions appropriately, of
Right.
course you're going to be afraid of it. Of course you're going to avoid it. It's uncomfortable
Yes.
until you learn that it's not. And then it's easy. Imagine walking into a room full of really angry people and knowing exactly what to say and how to say it with your heart full of compassion and zero anxiety. You know exactly what you're going to say and you know exactly what's going to happen. How did that make you feel?
That's the dream, Doug. That is the dream for me all the time.
It is
That's
absolutely,
it.
it is not a dream. It is a reality for every human being on this planet. It's not that hard to do that. It really isn't. And the more you do it, the better you get at it and the easier it becomes, like riding a bicycle. And
Yeah.
that's what I offer people. I
Yeah.
offer us a whole different way of being with each other that eliminates fights and arguments and tension and difficult conversations and conflict avoidance.
I mean, I would, when I think about the impact that that would have on the world if everyone learned this and did that, it is extraordinary. It's
That's right.
extraordinary.
We would train 25 men on a prison yard of 1,000. And within a year, that yard was a completely different place. Violence, I'm not going to say there wasn't any,
Sure.
but drastically reduced. And
Yeah.
men behaving. We've had over 100 life inmates who graduated from our program and we certified as mediators and peacemakers, have been released on parole here in California. Not one of them has reoffended. And they're all out in the community teaching people how to do this stuff.
We need to pause and emphasize how important that is, because the rates of recidivism are extraordinary, especially in the US and in certain states. I know California is one of them. The typical rates of recidivism are really high. The fact that none of the people who graduated from that is
Life inmates,
unheard
people
of.
who murdered somebody.
Unheard of. And I need everyone who is listening to or watching this to understand how extraordinary that is, because you said it like it was no big deal, but that is extraordinary, Doug.
The point of it isn't how extraordinary it is. This is what it can do for you.
Yeah.
What can it do in your kitchen, on your teams,
Mm-hmm.
in your crisis situations?
Mm-hmm.
What can it do for you? It can change everything if you're willing to take the time to learn and listen. Learn to listen. Yeah.
What is the best way for people to learn more about this and to put this in action?
I created a web page for everybody who's listening. This is the only people in the world that will ever get there, is if they listen to this show or watch the show notes. If you put this up, it's Doug Noll.
It will be in the show notes. Yep.
Doug Noll at DOUGNOLL.co/crisis.
Yep.
Go to the page, and that will get you started. You can get a free ebook. You can sign up for my De-Escalate Academy, which is free. You can buy my book. If you want to take one of my online courses, you can do that. You can book a call with me and talk to me about your problems. I never charge for calls, so you just book a call. I'm happy to chat with anybody. And who knows where it goes?
Yeah.
I'm available, obviously, like all people like me and you, we like to get up and talk to people. I love to tell my story. My thing is to spread a message. So keynotes, workshops, roundtables, everything to be able to share this gift with as many people as possible.
And it is a gift. And I want you to know, and anyone who is listening to this, that I am 100% going to be signing up to that webpage and downloading all of the things. So if anyone wants to do it with me, I will be doing this, because I think this is the impact that this can have is mind-boggling in the best way.
It cannot be overstated. You're right.
I really would like to talk to you for the next 47 hours about all of these things. Instead, I will probably just invite you back. But I feel like we didn't even get into all the stories. And I think that my guess is that I'm going to get a lot of feedback from this, of people being like, we need more. Tell us more about this. So I'll be inviting you back. But before we do that, I'm going to ask, is there anything that you really want to emphasize, or that we didn't get to, that you want to make sure you say on this platform today, that you're like, this is the thing?
No, I think we've covered it. I mean, just remember, it's really simple. You feel, and then name an emotion. And you only need, if you're dealing with upset, you only need 5 or 6 emotions. Actually, I teach people how an emotional database of about 30 or 40 emotions, which are easy enough to learn. But if you just want to start practicing: anger, frustration, disrespect, feeling unheard, invisible, unappreciated, unsupported, and worried or anxious or concerned. Yeah. That's all you need.
Yeah.
And that'll cover 95% of your crises, 95% of your leadership problems, 95% of just about everything.
Yeah. I love that. I'm going to say this to you before we wrap. As you were listing those emotions, I was like, the emotion that I always go to, my first one is always annoyed. I'm
annoyed.
always
there you
annoyed.
Go. Yep, it's an anger emotion. So,
I was
frustrated,
like,
annoyed, irritated. Absolutely.
No, that's always my go-to. So it's somewhere in there. We all have them.
Absolutely.
You are an absolute pleasure. And this was one of the most impactful, especially from a practical standpoint, conversations that I've had. And I know the listeners are going to love this. So thank you for sharing as openly as you did, and for telling the stories that you told. And just so you know, I'm 100% going to invite you back, and I bet the listeners are going to be all over that. So thank you.
Well, thanks, Céline. I really enjoyed chatting with you. It's so nice to talk with a kindred spirit.
My pleasure.
You've been listening to Leading Through Crisis, hosted by Céline Williams and brought to you by Revisionary. To learn more, visit leadingthroughcrisis.ca. Connect with Céline on LinkedIn and explore the show notes for resources and next steps. Until next time, keep leading with courage and clarity.